Ifans Media Corner back again with another video. Welcome back to my series of Spider-Man reviews, and we just covered the Raimi trilogy. Now we're going to be talking about the Marc Webb series, which are only 2 films, like I said in the previous video, which I filmed my review of Spider-Man 3. So, to continue with my series of Spider-Man reviews, I am here, of course, to talk to you guys about the 2012 superhero reboot, and that is, of course, The Amazing Spider-Man. So, The Amazing Spider-Man, this reboot, this was directed by Marc Webb, director of 500 Days of Summer, and in this movie, we do learn about Peter Parker's past of what happened with his parents, which is his father. He worked with Oscorp, and an incident happened, and which had to, unfortunately, he had to leave Peter being looked after by his Aunt May, who's played by Sally Field, and Uncle Ben, who's played by Martin Sheen, and Peter's parents, they had to flee to another country to basically try and avoid what's going on with them at Oscorp. And then a few years later, we see that Peter Parker, he's now growing up, but this time we see him being portrayed by Andrew Garfield, in which he's trying to sort of learn about his father's past, of like what happened when he was a young child, and he just didn't even know what was going on. So he goes to Oscorp to learn about a bit of history about what happened with his father, why he left him when he was just a child. And then what happens is, during a tour at Oscorp, which is led by this scientist named Dr. Kirk Connors, who's played by Rhys Ifans, who works at Oscorp. He's not like the main head of the company, because the main man who's part of the company is, of course, Norman Osborn. And what happens is, Peter, he gets bitten by a radioactive spider during an when he looks all about the spiders, and then one of them he catches one of the spiders, and he gets a spider bite. Then he starts to experience some superpowers of any kind of spider, like he has spider sense, he can climb up the walls, and reflexes and all that kind of stuff. And basically what happens is, of course, he faces a tragedy involving his uncle. His uncle dies, and then he decides to use his powers for good after he lost his uncle. And he decides to become the superhero known as Spider-Man, in which he creates his own suit, and then he even creates his own web shooters. Because he's not like what Tobey Maguire did in the original film, where he shoots web out of his wrist. He makes his own web shooters, like pew, 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 like that. And meanwhile, Dr. Connors, he basically makes an experiment, like antidote of sorts, where he makes this like deadly thing in the lab, which he injects himself to make another arm for himself, since he lost one arm. It works, but however, it causes side effects, and he becomes this huge green monster known as the Lizard, where he starts to cause havoc in hell in New York. And so it's basically up to Peter Parker as Spider-Man to basically stop the Lizard and stop his evil plan from making the city a living hell. So that's pretty much the story of The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, for me, going into this reboot, when I heard we were getting a reboot of this, I was a bit surprised to hear about it, because, of course, after what happened after Spider-Man 3 was released, of course, we were originally going to get a 4th movie, just called Spider-Man 4, having Tobey Maguire returning as Spider-Man, Kirsten Dunst returning as Mary Jane, and all the other cast were coming back except for a few. And the villains I heard who were originally going to be in the 4th movie before we didn't get it. We were originally going to have John Malkovich as the Vulture, and Bruce Campbell as Mysterio, being a 4th cameo from what I've heard. And we were also going to have Anne Hathaway as Black Cat, but unfortunately, back in 2010, I heard that Spider-Man 4 ended up, unfortunately, had to get cancelled, so we didn't get that, which, still to this day, for any movie I've heard that's been cancelled, it's the number one that always breaks my heart, because it would have been great to see Spider-Man 4, but unfortunately we didn't get it. So we ended up having to. Sony had to reboot the franchise, reboot the series. So we ended up getting The Amazing Spider-Man. And when I saw the teaser trailer back in 2012, I was surprised with it. And then after seeing that, I saw the new trailer before the movie was coming out, and I was kind of looking forward to it, because since I am still a massive fan of Spider-Man. And I remember back in 2012, when I was about to leave primary school to go and attend secondary school, for my last year, I remember on that day, like, my trip was we were originally gonna go to a beach, but unfortunately we couldn't go, but it had to get cancelled due to the weather. So they ended up saying that we were going to go to the cinemas, and I was really excited to go to the cinemas. And my class thought we were going to go and see Ice Age 4 Continental Drift, but we weren't because I said it wasn't even out yet. So, and then they said we were going to go and see The Amazing Spider-Man, and I was really excited for it since, again, I am a fan of Spider-Man, as you guys can tell. So I went to see this with my class in 2012, and since then I hadn't seen the film in quite a while until 2015. I did get my own copy of The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, 1 and 2 for my birthday. And since watching the film, and since I still rewatched the film and rewatched it in recent years, some people are kind of mixed with this movie because critics may be mixed on this, while some audiences may be mixed on this. Personally, I personally thought this reboot wasn't bad, actually. I kind of like this one a little bit more than the last Spider-Man film we had, which was Spider-Man 3, but I would say, obviously, it's nowhere near as good as the first two original Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. But I still had some enjoyment out of all of it. But we'll get into, we'll talk about my issues later on, but I want to get into my positives first of why I kind of enjoyed in this reboot. The performances in the movie, Andrew Garfield, who plays, of course, Peter Parker and Spider-Man, for his performance, I thought he gave a pretty fun performance as Spider-Man. I did like him as Spider-Man. For him capturing a bit of charm, but he's not like my absolute number one favorite portrayal of Spider-Man. And the suit in the film, I didn't mind the suit. Most people kind of divided on the suit. Some either like the suit or hate the suit. It is very different, of course. Like the webbings are all that quite different, and then his eyes are quite different because his eyes in this movie are yellow. Like I said, I didn't think the suit was all bad. I kind of like the suit, although it's not my favorite Spider-Man suit. And for his portrayal of Peter Parker, I just didn't really like his portrayal of Peter Parker since rewatching it because he just didn't feel like what Tobey Maguire was in the Raimi trilogy, of being like a quite of a nerdy genius, like outside character. Well, in this one he is kind of an outside character at first, but he's not really like a nerd genius or anything like that. He's not like like I said, he's not like Tobey Maguire in this one. He is very different because to me in this one he kind of felt like a punk, really, from riding his skateboard and just like for whatever he does in the film. There were some moments I thought fine, but the rest of it just didn't really fit in, just didn't feel that good enough for his portrayal of Peter Parker. But Emma Stone in the film, who plays Gwen Stacy, I thought she gave a pretty good performance, but there was some character development I just didn't think was that great enough. But Emma Stone wasn't all bad. Like I said, she was good in the movie, but there were some developments for a character I just didn't think that was that great enough. And she's not like what Kirsten Dunst is like as Mary Jane or anything like that. Because of course Gwen Stacy's character is very different from Mary Jane, like from the differences from the comics or the cartoon series of Spider-Man. And Rhys Ifans, who plays the villain, Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard, I thought he gave a good performance enough. For him as Dr. Connors, I thought he gave a solid performance, but there are some developments I just thought were kind of weak. And for him as the Lizard, the effects of the Lizard, it is really noticeable because it is CGI. But I didn't mind the way he looks in the film. At first I didn't like it, but rewatching it, I don't mind it. There are some moments with the Lizard I kind of enjoy. Like there are some good action sequences between him and Spider-Man, like on the scene on the bridge, the school attack, and then of course the finale in the city where the Lizard's about to expose his formula stuff to everyone that can infect everyone to turn into mutant lizards. Well, for what he was given to do that, I kind of found it a bit ridiculous. But I did like the voice of the Lizard though. Overall, the Lizard wasn't all bad, and he's not like the worst villain I've seen for a Spider-Man in a Spider-Man movie or anything. He wasn't all like I said, Rhys Ifans, he wasn't all bad, and Sally Field's Aunt May, she wasn't too bad in the film, but for her portrayal, I just didn't like what she was given. I just didn't think she's my favorite. She's not my favorite portrayal of Aunt May I've seen for a movie since Rosemary Harris in Spider-Man 1 and 2 and 3. I kind of like that. I kind of like that version of Aunt May better than this one. And Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben, he was solid enough. But he's nowhere near as perfect as like what Cliff Robertson was in the original film. And Denis Leary, who plays Captain Stacy, I thought he gave a solid performance enough as well. And for Marc Webb's direction in this movie, there were some good directed moments. Like I said, for the action sequences, like the one on the bridge, the school attack, as well as some of its finale, and all that. There were some moments I did enjoy, but there were some moments in the film I just didn't think they were kind of like worthy. They kind of felt a bit unnecessary to be in this reboot. But there were some moments of the reboot I kind of enjoyed, but there were like outside of some of the action sequences. But there were some moments in the film I just didn't think that were worthy of being in. If they were kind of like cut short or anything like that to like some plot holes or anything that was just kind of cut short. And the score by James Horner, which rest in peace. You may know him for doing the music for Titanic or anything like that, or anything with James Cameron. For his score for his take on Spider-Man, there was some music I enjoyed, but there was some music I just couldn't remember that much. But it's not all bad. I mostly prefer, Danny Elfman's score since I was a kid, because that's one of my childhood. But like I said, there are some music I enjoy, I found memorable, but there are some I just couldn't remember that much. Even rewatching the film, there are some moments I can't remember enough, but there are some moments I couldn't remember that much, because not many people, there are some people who don't even talk about this reboot that much. Like some say avoid this, or some either avoid this one, or they just kind of want to talk about it for those who are a fan of Spider-Man. But from what I've seen on YouTube, but personally in the end, I did enjoy the reboot, although it's not as good as the first two Raimi films. I kind of like this one. I like this movie a lot better than Spider-Man 3. Like I said, there were some moments I enjoyed, but the rest of it, I had quite a few issues with. Mainly some of the portrayal of Peter Parker, and some character developments I kind of found weak and just not great, and some plot holes and subplots and everything like that. I just kind of felt, but it's definitely not the worst reboot I've ever seen for a movie, and it's not a worst superhero reboot I've ever seen. But if you're a massive fan of Spider-Man and you want to continue watching the movie series, this could be your cup of tea. Who knows? But I've just got pretty much nothing else to say other than this reboot I did enjoy, but again, it's not my favorite Spider-Man film. So I'm gonna give The Amazing Spider-Man 3 out of 5 stars. Again, there's a lot of people out there on the internet and YouTube who are kind of divisive on this movie. I'm not mixed on this film. There are, like I said, I did enjoy it, but there are a lot of issues with it, and it's not a huge, disappointing, terrible like reboot I've ever seen for a movie based on one of my favorite characters of superheroes ever. But yeah, if you're a fan of if you're a fan of Spider-Man, if you want to continue watching the series after you watch the Raimi trilogy, you could enjoy this one. Who knows? But thank you guys so much for watching my review of The Amazing Spider-Man. And let me know what you think of this reboot. If you have seen this already, did you either enjoy this or do you hate this? Or you're in the middle with this one? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and stay tuned for my review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'll be doing that later on. And as always, this has been Foggins Media Corner signing off.